Hello and welcome to the 2020 Women Who Inspire Awards and Scholarships webinar. We are on a Zoom webinar today and just going through a few quick housekeeping notes for all of the attendees joining us today. Welcome, and it looks like there's about 74 of you. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and has started the recording now. And as this is a webinar, you as participants will not be able to see one another, as typically you might experience in a Zoom meeting. And as this is a webinar, so therefore you will only be seeing today's speakers. If you wish to chat with fellow participants, you can do so through the chat box. For today, should you have any questions for any of the speakers, please use the Q&A box to type your question, and the moderator will read and address, and we will get to those questions throughout today's webinar. Should you wish to listen and participate in an alternative language, you can do so by going to the top left corner of your video screen. There's a drop-down box for closed captioning, and you can go through there to choose a different language. And finally, should any of you participating today require any technical assistance, please do so either through chat. The contact is the OBA support, and in just a moment I will put that information in the chat box as well. At this time, I would now like to turn over the event to Nazat. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin, and good morning, everyone. I am so glad to see you all, albeit virtually. There's a great response to our event. This is our first virtual Women Who Inspire Awards brunch, actually. So I hope you've got your coffee, tea, your breakfast with you, and you're going to be enjoying yourselves while you're engaging in some celebration and discussion, and I know we'll miss the buzz and the energy when we have these events live, but we're happy to have you virtually. And so I'm going to actually go through the program with you as we proceed, and I will be your MC, and I'll be more or less directing traffic and making sure that everyone gets to speak. And also I'll be doing some timekeeping simply because this is a virtual event and we want to keep things moving smoothly. I'm very excited to have two excellent keynote speakers, and you'll hear from them soon. And we will also hear from our honorees, both when they accept their awards as well as when they participate in our community discussion this morning. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is now pass it over to our dear President, Nina Karachi Khalid. She will provide our welcome remarks, and she'll have some introductory words for us. Nina, over to you.
Thanks, Nazat. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome, everybody, to the Canadian Council of Muslim Women's 2020 Women Who Inspire Awards and Scholarship event. My name is Nina, and I want to welcome all of you on behalf of the National Board to our first virtual Women Who Inspire event. As many of you know, we've been holding this event since 2007. We usually hold a brunch in a hotel in Toronto to celebrate this event. And during normal days, we'd be greeting and hugging each other. Of course, these are unprecedented times with a worldwide pandemic going on. We are so happy to be holding this event nonetheless. Actually, being able to gather, even if it is via the internet, makes us so grateful for our community and friends. Every year, this event has been the main fundraiser for the Laila Falman Scholarship Fund. This year, under the leadership of Firdaus Ali, and thanks to the generosity of all of you, we've raised $20,000. By the way, we had set an ambitious goal of $10,000 to be raised when we started planning this event. MashaAllah, Many young women will be able to study and reach their future goals because of your kindness. We have many sponsors who help to make this event possible. A special mention to our gold sponsors, and they include the Canadian Labour Congress, Chatty and Company, Criminal, Family and Personal Injury Law, Niagara Protective Coatings, OCASI, the Ontario Council of Agencies Serving Immigrants, Devoir Skin, and Elixir Integrated Medical Centers and Women's Health. We also want to thank our silver and bronze sponsors for today's event. Thank you very much for your generosity. On behalf of the National Board, I want to congratulate this year's Women Who Inspire honorees and the Lila Fallman Scholarship winners. We're so proud of your accomplishments, and we are grateful for your efforts in making this a better world. CCMW's mission is to affirm our identity as Canadian Muslim women and to promote an understanding of our lived experiences through community engagement, through research, through influencing public policy, and through striving for positive change. You will see our mission exemplified in the Women Who Inspire award winners and scholarship recipients you're going to meet today. I want to conclude these opening remarks with a special mention of two board members who have been with CCMW since its inception in 1982. Salma Shaheen, who is everyone's honorary mother, is stepping down from the board this year. She has been one of our guiding lights and source of knowledge for so many years. Solmas is watching the proceedings from Niagara Falls today, and we're sending you our love and thanks. The other board member who will reduce her workload a little bit is Najat Hassan. Najat has held many official roles and unofficial ones too in her years with the National Board. She's also been an active member of the London, Ontario chapter. She has boundless energy and incredible negotiation skills. She's a true friend, and we know that we can always count on Najat in the future when we need her advice and expertise. Thank you again for being with us today. I'd like to pass the mic to Shaheen Ashraf in Montreal to recite a prayer from the Quran. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Allahumma antas salam wa minkas salam wa alayka yarjus salam wa adkhilni darus salam. Hayyana rabbana bis salam. Tabarakta ya zul jalali wal ikram. Sadaqallahul azim. Meaning, I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed evil one. With the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most compassionate. O God, you are the source of peace. Peace flows back and forth from you. Make me enter the door of peace. Our dear Lord, bless us with peace. Exalted you are, O Lord of majesty and honor. God has revealed the truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaheen. Now I'd like to call on Fawzia Talib, our board member, who will do the land acknowledgement. Over to you, Fawzia. Thank you. Fawzia, hopefully her mic is not muted.
Thank you, Nazhat. Assalamu alaikum. Our land acknowledgement statement recognizes the traditional territory of the indigenous people who call this land home before the arrival of settlers, and in many cases still do call this land home. We offer this land acknowledgement appreciating that we are all on the lands of others, that the land we are on has been inhabited continuously for over 15,000 years. We acknowledge the historical oppressions of lands, cultures, and the original peoples in what we know now as Canada. This land acknowledgement is an opportunity to reflect on the impacts of colonialism, to be accountable to Indigenous peoples, and to thank those who still live on and care for this land, their traditional land. Our virtual gathering today includes participants from across Canada, throughout Turtle Island, and possibly around the globe. In Canada, we recognize and offer thanks to the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. The land we reside upon today has long been served as sites of meetings and exchanges amongst nations. I am joining you today from Ottawa, and I acknowledge that I am on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, whose presence here reaches back to time immemorial. I recognize the Algonquins as the customary keepers and defenders of the Ottawa River watershed and its tributaries. Wherever you are today, I invite you to take a moment to reflect upon our predecessors on whose traditional ancestral lands we live, work, and gather for celebrations like today's. Let us honor their long history of welcoming many nations to this beautiful territory and uphold and uplift the voice and values of our host nations. Let us vow to respect the permissions to take because of treaties and to be mindful of the liberties we take with unprecedented and the liberties we take with unceded and unsurrendered lands and resources. Let us conscientiously work to build respectful relationships between nations. Let us work fervently to contribute to the healing and decolonizing journey we are all sharing together. Let us strive for respectful partnerships with all the peoples of our respectful provinces, and let us continue to search for collective healing and true reconciliation, and honor this beautiful land together. Amen.
Thank you, Fawzia. That was lovely. I'm going to now invite Naseem Karani. Naseem is our national board member from Edmonton, and she's also the chair of the Edmonton chapter of CCMW. Naseem, would you like to introduce our keynote speaker, Her Honor, the Honourable Salma Lakhani?
Okay,
Thank
sure.
you.
All right. As a CCMW member, I am proud to introduce our 2020 Women Who Inspire Awards and Scholarships keynote speaker, Her Honor, the Honorable Salma Lakhani, Alberta's 19th Lieutenant Governor. Her Honor, the Honorable Salma Lakhani's long-standing service as a community leader and volunteer has been guided by her deep commitment to the values of pluralism and inclusion, and her dedication to championing those who face barriers in life. Born and raised in Kampala, Uganda, Her Honor, the Honorable Salma Lakhani, is a proud Ismaili Muslim who inherited her devotion to giving back from her parents. A keen student with a deep-seated love of education, she began looking for opportunities to contribute to the community and to help those in need to thrive. Her Honor, the Honorable Salma Lakhani has received the Alberta Centennial and Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal in recognition of her services to community and civil society. We welcome her to our first virtual WWI 2020 event and hope that she continues
to be a strong supporter and ally of CCMW, furthering our commitment to equality, equity, and empowerment of Canadian Muslim girls and women. Thank you. The Honourable Salma Lakhani. Thank you.
Thank you, Naseem, for your warm and gracious introduction. And thank you also for your inspiring leadership over many, many years. Assalamu alaikum and hello, everyone. I'm very pleased to join you for this annual celebration. And I would like to begin by thanking everyone at the Canadian Council of Muslim Women for bringing us together today and for everything that you do to foster success for all of our fellow Muslim sisters across Canada. I am truly honored to have this opportunity to help shine the spotlight on our extraordinary Women Who Inspire Award and Scholarship recipients for 2020. I would have loved to have met all of you in person, but right now, as you know, we each need to do whatever we can to protect our loved ones and our communities from COVID. I am sure that everyone is feeling fatigued by this new normal, and we all miss the opportunities we once took for granted to meet up with friends, to share meals and stories, and to offer hugs of support. Although we are unable to physically meet this year, I know that this virtual gathering will to give us all a boost of energy and focus as we navigate through this challenging time. I thought I would share with you 3 qualities that I have been trying to keep front of mind this year. The first quality I would like to talk about is compassion, and it is something that is essential in times like these. Throughout the pandemic, we have heard and seen so many stories of people reaching out to help others, making sure everyone in the community is cared for and staying well. In truth, real progress in any society or through any challenge is only possible if we make compassion and caring part of the equation. We all succeed when we make sure that everyone has the care and support they need to thrive. Indeed, wanting for our fellow human beings what we want for ourselves is perhaps the only real recipe for a better world. My earliest and most enduring role model for compassion was my mother. Although she had a challenging childhood, losing her own mother when she was only 3, she was a resilient and determined woman who taught me the importance of reaching out to those in need. While compassion is essential, we also need a bit of fire in our hearts if we want to get things done and create positive change. This brings me to the second quality I would like to talk about, which is determination. Some people might call this courage, but I think of determination simply as courage sustained over a long period. It is the ability to maintain focus and to continue pouring all of one's energy into a goal, regardless of the twists and turns that life sends our way. One of my personal role models, someone who personified determination, was my friend and the namesake of the scholarship we are supporting today, the late Dr. Lila Foreman. Since I became Lieutenant Governor of Alberta this past August, people have been quick to point out that I am the first Muslim to serve in this role in Canada. However, I am also the first person of South Asian descent and the first African-born vice-regal representative, so I get to wear a few different hats. But Lila Foreman broke through many barriers and established a long list of pioneering milestones, and that truly made my own first possible. Of course, she was the founder of the CCMW and the World Council of Muslim Women Foundation, the first Canadian woman to earn a PhD in educational psychology, the first Muslim woman in Canada to serve on a public school board, and the first Muslim woman in North America to serve as a university chaplain. A recipient of the Order of Canada in 2002, she applied her great energy and determination to achieving her vision of Canada as a place that welcomes people of all faiths and fosters equal opportunities and possibilities for all citizens. She often said, and I quote, "I believe in what I am doing, and I believe it should be done," unquote. Now, these are straightforward words that are easy to say, but not always easy to achieve. Lila always delivered on her convictions, and she inspired so many of us to do the same. It was a great privilege for my husband and me to know her. Following in Dr. Foreman's pioneering footsteps, many more fellow Canadian Muslim women have gone on to break glass ceilings in virtually every field of human endeavor, and we honor and thank them for their leadership and inspiration. In her book, Becoming, Michelle Obama wrote, "You may not always have a comfortable life, and you will not always be able to solve all of the world's problems at once. But don't ever underestimate the importance you can have, because history has shown us that courage can be contagious and hope can take on a life of its own." This brings me to the third and perhaps the most important trait I would like to offer as a route to solving problems and creating change, and that trait is hope. When the Prime Minister's office contacted me this past spring to ask if I would consider allowing my name to stand as a potential Lieutenant Governor, these were some of the inspiring women who factored into my decision to take the plunge, and they are all my personal role models when it comes to maintaining a hopeful outlook on life. I should tell you that my first response to that call from PMO in Ottawa was utter disbelief. My husband was most encouraging, and our daughters Sophia, Soraya, and our son-in-law Zain piled on with all their love and support, helping me to see the potential that this new role would afford me to be of service to my fellow Albertans. I am sure that all of you who are parents understand this sense of hope and promise that our children give us and keep us looking to the future with optimism. It's been just 2.5 months since I took the oath of office, and I'm still overwhelmed by and grateful for the support I have received from my family and friends and from so many, many people across Canada. In this short time, I have already had the pleasure of being part of numerous award ceremonies and special events like this one that only highlight the goodness in my fellow Canadians and the great capacity that we have for compassion, determination, and hope. We may not get everything right every time, but we are moving in the right direction always. Each of us doing what we can to ensure that the promise and opportunities that Canada has to offer are felt by everyone. I am reminded of the words of one of my predecessors, the late Honourable Lois Ho, who served as the 15th Lieutenant Governor of Alberta. She said, "I have faith in a better future because I have faith that most human beings want to do the right thing." Today, that sense of faith in the future and the goodness that is inherent in the human spirit is embodied by our amazing Women Who Inspire Award recipients. I am delighted to offer my heartfelt thanks and congratulations to our wonderful honorees and scholarship recipients for 2020. I would also like to recognize the Honorable Mariam Monsef. Thank you, Minister Monsef, for your service to our great country. You make us all very, very proud. In concluding, I thank CCMW President Nina Karachi Khalid and everyone at the national and provincial levels for your leadership, commitment, and service, and for the inspiration and support you share with all of us across the country. Again, congratulations to all our award and scholarship recipients, and please enjoy this very, very well-deserved moment of recognition and celebration. Thank you, and assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, Your Honor. That was just beautiful. Your words actually brought tears to my eyes because of the women that inspired compassion, determination, and hope. You are definitely a woman who inspires. So we are going to follow you in your footsteps and your leadership and watch your work. And hopefully, inshallah, you'll be able to join us again. And we will love to work with you in partnership with CCMW and other organizations to keep empowering young Muslim women and Muslim women and girls all over Canada and around the world. Thank you again for your words of wisdom and compassion, determination, and hope. Thank you. It gives me great pleasure now to introduce you to our next speaker, who is not a stranger to CCMW. Our next speaker is the Honourable Mariam Monsef. Minister Monsef is a great champion of ours. She has been with us in every celebration, through our struggles, and she's also been there whenever we needed a push to get things done for Canadian Muslim women. Her department, the Department of Women and Gender Equality, has been very supportive of us, and currently we're enjoying a strengthening capacity grant from Women and Gender Equality currently. I'm going to just share with you a few words about Minister Monsef. And once again, welcome, Minister. You are a great friend of ours, and we're so happy and delighted to have you with us again. So the minister is responsible for women and gender equality and rural economic development. She represents the riding of Peterborough Kawartha. The Honourable Maryam Monsef is Canada's Minister for Women and Gender Equality and Rural Economic Development. And as I mentioned, she is the first woman to be elected in the federal riding of Peterborough Kawartha, the first Afghan-Canadian member of Parliament in Canada's history, and the first Muslim to serve as a federal cabinet minister. Recognized by Apolitical as one of the top 20 most influential people in gender policy for the past 20 years, Minister Monsef has helped to shape the conversation about gender equality on the national and global stage. She helped lead Canada's efforts to mainstream gender equality and gender-based analysis, plus into all G7 work, including during its presidency in 2018, as well as oversaw the activities of Canada's G7 Gender Equality Advisory Council. She has led the Canadian delegation to the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women since 2017, represented Canada at the World Bank, and was instrumental in bringing discussions of gender equality to the table at the World Economic Forum. She has always been committed to giving back to her community and her country. In her home community of Peterborough, she co-founded the Red Pashmina campaign, which raised money to support education for women and girls in Afghanistan. She is an alumna of Trent University and speaks English, Farsi, and Dari. It gives me great pleasure now to introduce you to our keynote speaker, the Honourable Maryam Monsef, who's going to address the topic of racial reckoning. Where do Muslims stand? Minister?
Well, hello, everybody. Bonjour, Anin, salam alaikum. It's a great privilege to be connected with you on this rainy Sunday. I'm in Peterborough, Ontario, on traditional territory that the Mississauga peoples have called home for many generations. This is the only place that I've ever known as home. It's the only place that I've ever felt safe. It's the only place I've ever felt like I belong in. And this is also the place that calls, that would elect the first woman First Nation chief in Canada. This is the home of Chief Elsie Knott of Curve Lake First Nation, and in her footsteps follow a long line of strong women who continue her important work. I want to thank the Canadian Council of Muslim Women for bringing us together. There has never been a more important time for us to come together, to be together, to plan together, to give each other strength and courage, and to get to know one another a little bit better. There has never been a more important time for these connections. And leave it to the women's movement, the creativity of the women's movement to find a way to come together. Because indeed, we are experiencing a really important moment in our history as Canadians, in the trajectory of where the world is going, but also in the history of the women's movement, the feminist movement. And it is only through our connections that we'll be able to seize the moment, to make the most of the opportunities, and to ensure that the opportunities for our daughters and granddaughters and our sons and grandsons continue to be enhanced and, do right by those who have paved the way for us. I want to tell you what an honor it is to get to connect, because of Canadian Council of Muslim Women, with Canada's first Muslim Lieutenant Governor. Your Honor, Your Excellency, I am so glad you said yes to that phone call. I am so glad that you have chosen to serve your province, your beautiful province, because not only will you make a big difference for Albertans, but your mere existence and the way you have chosen to use your platform already is the the representation matters. Seeing somebody like you speak as eloquently as you did today, it's been good for my soul, and I can tell you that I wasn't the only one fangirling. One of my directors, Aisha Chaguti, is on the line, and the two of us fangirled together, as I'm sure everybody on the line. We are so thrilled about this important appointment, and we all look forward to connecting with you throughout your tenure. To those of you who are about to get the love and the appreciation as award winners, thank you. This is a big day. The movement and the cause that you've joined doesn't often come with, rewarding days. It's often a slug. A lot of hard work goes into achieving what you've achieved. You're always going against the current. It's always uncomfortable. It always hurts. The movement we have chosen to join and to work to further strengthen is a movement that was born in pain, out of frustration, out of oppression. And you continue the work of those who've come before us. And there aren't that many days where people say thank you. There aren't that many days where you get the love and the recognition that you deserve. But today is a day where the women of Canada get to celebrate you. And to all the sacrifices that you made, to all the extra hours you poured into your work, this is a moment where I hope some of that fatigue that Her Excellency just mentioned gets to wash away and prepare you for the next big mountain you're going to climb. My experience with the Canadian Council of Muslim Women was a conversation in Montreal. When I first got appointed to this job, it was early 2017. The Prime Minister asked me to be his Minister for Women. And it was one of the toughest conversations I ever had. These women, and Nushat was in the room, so was Alia, and many others whose names I saw on this call, they kind of sat me down and said, look, the movement of Muslim women, particularly in certain provinces, is struggling. We don't have sustainable sources of funds. We are not able to attract the next generation of strong Muslim women to come and join and pick up the fight and move ahead. And, it was one of those calls that I would call spicy. But I got the point. These women were saying the same thing that women's groups across the country were saying. And out of those spicy but important conversations came Canada's first investment ever in the sustainability of the women's movement, the first multi-year fund, 5 years of funding to support women's organizations across the country. And as we are seeing now during COVID, the women who are working in the sectors that provide care, that provide advocacy for the most vulnerable, that is the foundation upon which our economy is built. And our response to COVID has been strong because of our connections. It's been strong because of essential workers, and it's been strong because Canadians across the country are able to stay together and to respond to the unique challenges in their own communities. So the movement is in a better place today than it was 5 years ago. And it's because women like the Canadian Council of Muslim Women came together and spoke from the same song sheet. They all said the same thing. We need to stabilize our sector so that we can do the work. Otherwise, the forces that seek to divide, the forces that many call backlash, are more motivated now than ever before because we're making progress. This movement we've joined, that we pick up the work for, has helped bring somebody like Salma Zahid as a member of Parliament to chair the Citizenship and Immigration Committee of the House of Commons. We've got women like Iqra Khalid, the amazing Iqra Khalid, who has taken so much heat in standing up for what she believes in just naming the word Islamophobia. She opened the door to hate and violence that was directed at her, a young Muslim woman, but she kept fighting. She had the support of the Prime Minister, she had the support of Cabinet, and she was able to secure tens of millions of dollars to address racism in our country, along with an anti-racism strategy, which is working. And I understand that the CCMW is one of our partners who will use those funds to make change. This movement, the Mobina Jaffers of Canada, they not only break glass ceilings and do good work and end up being role models for the rest of us, but they also take care of those of us who are in positions that, perhaps were not designed for us. We take care of each other. And that is the strength of our movement, is our kindness and the compassion that Her Excellency mentioned. Because when you name things like Islamophobia, when you name things like systemic racism, when you're willing to go and fight for these values, to fight for these wrongs to be right, there is always a price. There is always a price. And that price cannot be borne by the person who is moving it forward alone, because the forces against such progress are too strong. They are too strong. So when Canada's Muslim women, and our brothers, of course, come together and provide that support and courage and strength to those who are in the battle, that's what gives the person fighting the fight the strength to go through another day. That's what provides the person leading the charge with hope and optimism and determination that it's going to be okay, that it's a fight worth fighting, and that they are not alone. I want to thank the CCMW and everybody who has been there for those, I call them first, the ceiling smashers, the first to make it to a place that was not designed for people like us. Because your kindness and your support makes the difference between somebody like me inspiring the next generation to come and pick up the work, or saying, you know what, it's not worth it. It hurts too much. It comes at a cost to our families. Are you sure you want to do it? Instead, folks like those on this call, Muslim women across the country, when I was first deciding to run for office, there were a lot who said, are you a little too young to run? I was 29, by the way. Are you a little too young? Where are you going to get the money? How are you going to fight against the men? How are you going to walk into a room, if you even get the job, and earn the respect of the men in the room? They told me that when I'd knock on doors, people would be really nice to me at the door, and then as I'd walk away, they'd say, she's really nice, but she's a Muslim. And if I'd listened to those voices, I wouldn't have continued. There's a really strong Muslim community, particularly Afghan community in my area, who had my back. And every step of the way, you've been there. And so, the government of Canada can provide supports to fund the feminist movements. We will fight, and the Prime Minister will always be there to fight for justice, to address systemic racism, to address misogyny, to address Islamophobia. We have a Muslim caucus, the biggest Muslim caucus of all ever. We have colleagues who are your voice inside the government of Canada. We have staff, the smart people who advise us. There has never been more Muslim staffers on Parliament Hill. They are advising the Prime Minister. They're advising Chrystia Freeland, the Finance Minister. They're advising public safety and security. They are everywhere, and they are on my team. And they can do what they can to bring forward a Black entrepreneurship strategy. They will do everything they can to fight and make sure that the racism strategy is thoughtful and implemented well. But we all have an opportunity in this moment, with COVID wreaking all sorts of havoc on our individual lives and on our country. We have a moment to come together and decide that no matter what happens, we're going to push forward. We are going to ensure that those women on the front lines of the fight against COVID, the racialized women who work in our long-term care homes, those who provide care for our kids, those who work in schools, those who are on the streets, those with precarious immigration status, those stuck in abusive homes with the most dangerous persons in their lives, that they have a voice and that they know we're going to have their back. In this moment of reckoning, we have an opportunity to come together and continue to come together to make sure that when the budget for 2021 comes forward at the federal level, that our priorities are reflected. We have an opportunity to come together over the next couple of months to decide what our priorities are, and then all say the same thing. Is it housing? Is it poverty? Is it jobs? We have an opportunity too to take care of the people who've been on the front line of this fight for the past 8 months of COVID, to give them the strength they need to keep fighting. Canada's response has been stronger than so many other countries because of those individuals, and they need to know that we have their back. Our goal as a government is to ensure that women, including Muslim women, are safe, that they're working, and that their families are cared for. And that's the foundation to addressing the injustices and the inequalities that women have faced for too many generations. I'll end with this. This December 7th, will mark 50 years since the Royal Commission on the Status of Women tabled its groundbreaking report in the House of Commons, the Florence Bird Report, 167 recommendations that said, this is what we need to do to ensure that women and men in this country are equal and on the same playing field. The first recommendation, to give you a sense of what that report said, it was women should be able to apply for a mortgage without needing their husband's signature on that application form. We've come a long way in just 50 years. We have come a long way when women like me and Her Excellency and Iqra Khalid and Salma Zahid are in positions of power and influence. But this progress is not carved in stone. This progress is not permanent. It is not guaranteed that we will move forward. In fact, for every step we take forward, the forces that don't want to see this kind of progress mobilize and motivate and work to push us back even further. Our ability to come together, to stay focused, to avoid the forces that seek to divide us is going to determine how we make the most of this moment. It'll determine whether we get to build back better on the other side of COVID, or we go into a spiral of chaos and indecision because the movement cannot agree. So let's seize the moment, and let's remember that some of those spicy conversations that, wake up decision makers, they are only effective if every decision maker is hearing the same thing from their communities. They are only effective if you continue to stay in our faces. And yes, there are a lot of challenges. I didn't get into, it's been 19 years since 9/11. How far have we come? I didn't get into the murders and the tragedies and the violence that Muslims experience. I didn't get into all that because I know that we all know how much is at risk. I think at the same time, the more we tell the stories of strong, courageous, determined Muslim women who are rocking it in every community around the world, the more we do that, the more we change the perceptions and the stereotypes and the misconceptions about who we are and what we contribute to this great country that we all call home. So keep up the great work. Know that we will always have your back. We are looking for good ideas. And most importantly, be kind and take care of yourselves. The country needs you now more than ever. Thank you. Chimigwech, Tashakor. And thanks for all the comments.
Thank you, Minister. That was phenomenal. We will keep fighting. And, you gave us those fighting words. And you know that we keep fighting because that was our first encounter. And had it not been for that, we probably would have been struggling. But you heard us, and thank you very much for listening to us and encouraging us to keep fighting. We will do that. Your words will be with us for the duration of today, as well as the rest of our coming years. So thank you again for spending time with us and for those words to keep going, keep on keeping on. Thank you very much, Minister. Now it gives me great pleasure to ask our wonderful Sabrine Azrak. She's our National Projects Coordinator, who will introduce our spoken word performer, Timaj Garad. Sabrine?
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Timaj is an Ethiopian, Harare, Toronto-based multidisciplinary storyteller, arts educator, and community organizer. using poetry, theater, and music to bring her stories to life. Her art is autobiographical, working at the intersections of a Black Muslim woman challenging injustice, unearthing truths, and healing. As an award-winning arts and educator, Tamaj has graced over 300 stages and facilitated several arts-based workshops. Tamaj is the founder of Luminous Fest, Canada's first Black Muslim arts festival, and co-founder of the Sisters Retreat, a retreat series hosting local and international arts-based wellness retreats for Muslim women. She is currently living in Toronto, sharing her poetry on stages across the province, continuing to organize arts events, and working on her debut EP, Blooming at the Mouth, to be released in early 2021, inshallah. Tamaj believes in the transformative power of the arts to build capacity and strengthen communities. You can follow her work at tamajgerard.com.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It's such an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Tamaj Garad. I am, as mentioned, a poet, singer-songwriter, and I'm just really excited to be at this event in particular, celebrating women. Sisterhood has been such an inspiring and motivating force in my life, and something that women who have inspired me in my life have in common is their resilience. So I actually wanted to share my first piece called Unfolding, and it's about resilience. I've been writing love poems these days. In trenches of psychological wars, entrenched in a thirst for more, I've been writing in the silence of solitude to acknowledge you, love. As I try to uproot us just to see how grounded we are and measure our depth, you see, these love poems are more like notes to self. Reminders to remember you, love, in a world that seems to not want you to exist, because I've seen hearts fold like origami, inwardly to seek you, trying to mold something beautiful out of fragility, as if the fragile spirit of a human being isn't beautiful enough, and I tell them. I want to unfold your intricacies and read the poem written on that paper heart. And not the final draft. I want to read the rough. I want paper cuts on my hands from holding you. I want to bleed from your blood, my origami. I know it's hard to open up, so you stay hidden. But I wish I could convince you that your ribs are not a prison, not bars meant for your heart to sit in while it breaks so softly and almost mimics resilience instead. I want you to break bones of these ribs we make cages out of, and I will cast you a poem until you heal. But when you do, don't ever forget how it felt to be broken, because that's as close to human as breathing is to respiration, because that's as close to compassion as feeling is to innervation, because you've all felt the friction of heartache. We've all felt the friction of heartache, that volatile feeling of the trembling spirit, the tectonic shifting of pain, the words trapped in our throats, swallowed back into the abyss of the unspoken. I wonder how we will ever grow if we can't purge those suppressed words, however potent with anguish. To look up and realize that we are all folding in a sea of lost notes to self. And if you've ever seen a fold, you'll know, because it looks something like a scribbled out poem, like moments of stolen life, victim to a fingertips release, like moments of empty ecstasy, victim to a fingertips release, like tears streaming down cheeks that have been slapped more than they've been kissed. And amidst all of this, there are nights we wander loveless and confused, mistaking fireworks for stars, a street light for the moon, but still remain one piece, resisting folding into two. So don't tell me there's no hope when I can see hope in every resistance of a fold. Insight to the resilience of your soul, unfettered, my origami. I promise you things will get better as long as we continue to unfold and spread out to the world. So I think that piece is really important to me, because I think it's the resilience, and not so much just the skill and achievement, but how much barriers we have to overcome as women that has made us who we are. And I think that that's also something to celebrate. So I know the theme is racial reckoning, and we really can't have that conversation without addressing anti-Blackness and anti-Black Islamophobia within our community. So I wanted to share a piece that I wrote initially as a poem, but then I actually converted it to a song. It's going to be on my upcoming EP called Blooming at the Mouth, and this is called Black Gold. Black Muslim girls, Black Muslim girls, Black Muslim girls, you are more than magic. You are a multitude of dope fly out of this world. Love, making love to love, melanated masterpiece. There is nothing tragic about you. The tragedy is living in the kind of world that brings you the kind of grief that has you digging the earth with your teeth. Duality wrapped in your tongue as you code switch deep enough to be Black and Muslim, but rarely at the same time. Your spine is the site of intergenerational trauma, and they mine your back until it cracks and exposes the black gold from your backbone that was sought. But this is not a minery. We are the kind of tired you become when you're both the product and the labor, because apparently there is a bed here on our backs that some will sleep on yet call themselves woke. But this is not a dreamland. This is quicksand. We are women with a softness that will sink you and lift you at the same time. Prayer bead woven fingers when we are triggered, then proceed to whisper scripture and strive higher than the brand of justice that was promised here, in the dance between the ephemeral and eternal. Here in the in-between, here in the you can't hear yourself loud enough to hear your dreams sometimes, here in the place where a woman at the masjid once asked me where I'm from. So I tell her I'm Ethiopian, and she says, wow, mashallah, just like Bilal, but then mixes it with dirty looks, mixed with, that must be why you're doing it wrong, do it like this, mixed with, so what are you mixed with? Like it's a compliment, and I want to tell her I'm mixed with Black, and even blacker than that, unapologetically blacker than Black, Black Muslim girls, I know the world is burning with your names right now, but you are not a forest fire. You are the brilliance of many suns and the wisdom of many moons. I know this system makes you nervous sometimes, but your nervous system was designed to feed you feeling, impulses through your pulse for healing, your winters withering in your bloom while holding on to their truths. Your Blackness has always been in season. Your Blackness has always been in season. Your Blackness has always been in season. So like I mentioned, I actually turned that into a song by the same name, Black Gold. We recorded a video, and fun fact, a couple of those, I'm not gonna put them on blast, but a couple of the folks that were in the video, the women that were in the video are a part of this event. So shout out to them. And the video's coming out, inshallah, in late January, which is when I'll be releasing the song. And the EP will be coming out early next year as well. So if you're interested, if you want to follow my work and follow my journey, inshallah, I will drop my Instagram, which is where I'm most active, as well as my website and the comments. And you can, inshallah, follow me there and look out for that EP. And again, I'm a singer-songwriter as well. So it's music and it's poetry. This next piece, and it'll actually be my last piece, 8 minutes goes by quite quickly. This last piece is part 2 to a poem I wrote a while ago called Things We Didn't Say. Freedom looks exactly like me. Freedom looks exactly like me. Freedom looks exactly like me. I swallowed the entire globe in one sentence. Not knowing how I would digest it, you used to ask me the question, how are you? I used to want to say, do you know how it feels? Do you know how it feels to have the earth dangling from the edge of your throat, begging you not to drop her any further and dropping her and everything around her anyway? Well, I think I swallowed a solar system, love, because I swear I feel something orbiting in me. Maybe my heart around my mind, maybe my mind around my heart, maybe my heart around itself for truth, maybe deeper. I may be communing with the moon. As she pulls the water in me towards her and away over and over again, like a tide in my limbs, saying, that's why you're made of mostly water, so we can make you dance even when you are still. I commune with the moon so intimately. I commune with the moon so intimately. Yet she's only a minuscule part of the solar system that's now living in me, and it multiplies. I now know how it feels to cradle an entire galaxy in my mouth, devour it as stars give birth to themselves in my throat as the sun dances through my chest, smiling at my spine, and yet sometimes I still have the nerve to apologize for my shine. Bashful of my brilliance, even though I know how it feels to cradle an entire galaxy in my mouth. And I know how it feels because I remember telling you I was afraid of shattering into a billion pieces. I was afraid to come to you messy. I was afraid of creating black holes in me and falling into myself deeply and in slow motion, because do you know how it feels to be pregnant in the spine, each vertebrae reverberating celestial bodies trapped in spinal discs infesting your body, and feel like you may not know how to stand up straight enough to hold it all together, that if you move too far forward or back, that something could snap and you would grind the entire universe to dust. Well, I want to remind you that dust is what stars are made of, that the universe is constantly building, breaking, and rebuilding itself in its stellar evolution, and your evolution is stellar too. I want to remind you that your swallowed Earths, universes, galaxies are not looking to be digested. They are looking to live like words do. They were looking to live like Earths do. They were looking for home and they chose you. And maybe that's just because freedom looks exactly like you. Freedom looks exactly like you. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Tamaj. It's been a pleasure to be here. Congratulations to all the women being honored. I know a couple of them, and I'm so proud of all of you. MashaAllah, I think this is really wonderful that we have this moment to celebrate women that inspire us. I look forward to the rest of the event. And you can follow me again on Instagram at Tamaj Garad, and my website, tamajgarad.com. I linked it in the comment section if you want to check that out. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam, Timaj. That was really mesmerizing. I was sort of hanging on to every word and being taken to almost another planet because the words were both challenging as well as truly inspiring and soothing. So thank you again. And the next time we're actually going to hear from your recorded works, your records, your songs, because we've heard you at our previous events, and your talent is absolutely amazing. So we look forward to our next encounter. Thank you. I know that I'm just going to do a quick time check. I know that we're running slightly behind, but every single word we've heard so far, every single moment of inspiration has been worth it. So I hope you're with us. And now we're going to really get into, we're going to get into the awards themselves to these amazing women that we have the pleasure of honoring today. So I'm going to hand it over now to Nina and to Najat, and they're going to be presenting the awards, and we'll hear from our honorees as the awards are presented to them. Nina and Najat, over to you. Thank you again, Timaj.
Thank you, Timaj. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I have the honor of introducing the first 4 Women Who Inspire award winners. First up, we have Dr. Fatima Jackson Best. She's actually joining us today from Barbados, so welcome. She's a public health researcher with a specialization in mental health, and whose work focuses on communities in Canada and the Caribbean. She holds a PhD from the University of Toronto, Dalla Lana School of Public Health, and she conducted her dissertation research on Black women's experiences of maternal depression in Barbados. In 2018-2019, she worked with the Black Muslim Initiative and the Tessellate Institute to publish a systematic review focused on Black Muslims in Canada. Currently, Dr. Jackson Best is a lecturer at York University in the Department of Anthropology and the project manager of Pathways to Care, where she is designing an intervention to improve access to mental health and addiction services for Black children, youth, and their families in Ontario. Welcome, Dr. Jackson Best.
Hello, good morning. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I just want to make sure I can be heard well. So thank you so much, CCMW, for this award. It's such an amazing honor. I've admired the work of CCMW for many, many years, and it's really humbling to be able to accept it today. I want to dedicate the award, which I don't have in hand because it arrived to my home in Toronto, but I'd like to dedicate it today to the women who've inspired me in my life. My mother, Jackie Taylor, who's on the line, my grandmothers, Myrna Taylor and Sheba Vance, my great-grandmothers, Sybil Ford, Eunice Taylor, and Ella Mae Vance, and all of my ancestors whose sacrifices have made all of what I have achieved and will achieve possible. Many of those women that I mentioned are Black women and Black Muslim women, and many times our contributions are erased from larger narratives. I'd like to encourage everyone to acknowledge Black women and Black Muslim women who have impacted our worlds. And I'd like to end by acknowledging some of the many Black women and Black Muslim women who have impacted my life. Women like Afua Cooper, Dr. Afua Cooper, Dr. Natisha Massaquoi, Dr. Akua Benjamin, Joan Cuffey, Sharon Najula Douglas, Professor Don Edge, Margaret Parsons, Zanena Kande, Evelyn Myrie, Colleen Brewster Taylor. Thank you to all of those women and the many others who could not come to mind as I put together a list of women who've impacted my life. Thank you very much to all of them. And thank you very much again for this honor.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson Best. We're so pleased that you're able to join us from Barbados, beautiful Barbados. Next up, we have Nadia Hassan. Welcome, Nadia. She has a PhD in political science from York University. She currently serves as the National Council of Canadian Muslim, NCCM's Chief Operating Officer, and she's part of the executive team leading the organization's strategic direction on civil liberties and human rights issues affecting Canadian Muslims. Nadia has a background in academia and the nonprofit sector. She has several years of experience working on policy and programs at Canadian think tanks and NGOs, and she has taught university courses in South Asian studies, religion, and gender. Her doctoral research focused on Muslim women's organizations and the practice of Islam in Canada and Pakistan. Nadia is a published author on gender, religion, and migration. Welcome, Nadia.
Thank you so much, Nina. And thank you so much to the entire team at CCMW for this award, and also for making this event happen despite some very unforgiving circumstances. So, kudos to your entire team. But also I want to kind of just thank you for continuing this really important tradition of highlighting the work of Muslim women across the country. I'm extremely humbled to be included in this incredible list of women who have done so much for our communities. And really, I honestly feel very out of place and very honored. But I'm especially humbled to receive it from an organization like CCMW, which is an organization that I have admired and eagerly followed since I was in high school. And I won't say how long ago that was, but thank you CCMW for continuing to hold space and for breathing just so much life into our identities as Muslim women from all walks of life. And thank you for this award. To me, this award is really a recognition of the work that our entire team at NCCM has been doing in fighting Islamophobia and racism here in Canada. And I want to dedicate this award to the amazing women at NCCM who inspire me every day. And I just want to name a few: Sarah Abu Bakr, Asiya Khan, Samiha Omar, Fatma Sajan, and Dr. Freya Khan, and so many of the women who came before and laid the foundation for us to do the work that we're doing now. So thank you all, and thank you so much for this award.
Thank you, Nadia. We're so pleased to have you here with us today. Next winner, Sarah Munawar. Sarah received her PhD in political science from the University of British Columbia in 2019, and she's currently teaching international relations, decolonial theory, and development at Columbia College. As a scholar, she specializes in contemporary Islamic ethics, critical disability studies, decolonial epistemology, and care ethics. Interestingly enough, her research and writing is rooted in her family's situated experiences as primary caregivers for her father, who was a stroke survivor. She's working on a project that will be a call to Muslims to interrogate the unequal distribution of care work in our families and communities, to support and empower caregivers and disabled Muslims in our relations, and to reimagine and redesign our homes, our mosques, and the spaces in which we gather to be more inclusive and accessible. She's also the founder of the Zamzam Well. It's an online database and archive of feminist, decolonial, and intersectional contributions to Islamic thought. The open access database is a practice of public scholarship Through the database, she hopes to support Muslims all over the world in the struggle against Islamophobia, colonialism, heteropatriarchy, capitalism, ableism, secularism, and white supremacy by sharing community-based research, anti-oppressive vocabularies, educational resources, and practices that are rooted in the Islamic tradition and contexts. Unfortunately, Sarah is not able to be with us today, but we are wishing her all the best and good health, inshallah, and we hope to be with her one day soon. Our next winner, Arzu Najibzadeh. Arzu is a rising voice for women's civic and political leadership in Canada. As the founder of Platform, Arzu is boldly transforming civic spaces to reflect the lived experiences and leadership of Black, Indigenous, and racialized young women and gender diverse youth. Since 2017, she has built civic leadership capacity among young women and gender diverse youth, and worked with civic leaders to challenge systemic barriers against their civic engagement. As a natural storyteller and inquisitive thinker, Arzu is on a mission to curate conversations and build bridges among people to shape a future that centers intersectional gender justice and equity. Arzu is regularly consulted to lend her expertise and perspective to civil society, organizations, and movements. Arzu was most recently recognized as the 2020 Young Woman of Distinction by YWCA Toronto. And Arzu was not sure if she was going to be with us. I'm not sure that she's here.
She couldn't make it. I got a message earlier today.
Thank you, Nushat. Okay, I'm passing the mic along to Najat Hassan now.
Thank you, Nina.
Welcome.
Gives me pleasure to introduce our next recipient, Nargis Naqvi. She's a training director at Sound Vision and a founder of My Voice Canada, a youth nonprofit organization led by teenagers who express themselves via writing, editing, designing, photography, illustration, stage plays, and videos. Aside from her professional and voluntary interests, Nargis is also an accomplished author and artist. Welcome, Nargis. I believe Nargis is here.
I'm right here. Thank you so much, Najat. Really appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you so much for this beautiful opportunity. I'd like to thank, first and foremost, Allah for giving me this opportunity and this recognition. And at the same time, CCMW and the person who nominated me for putting me in this position. And I was just looking at all of the other wonderful women who were the award recipients, and I was thinking, what am I doing here? They're so much more accomplished. So alhamdulillah, thank you so much for that. And at the same time, I'd like to dedicate this award to all the women out there who really are doing so much more than than we ever really get to see and get to recognize. And I really feel humbled that this was given to me at this point. At the same time, CCMW does so much amazing work, and at My Voice Canada, the youth-run organization, every time the girls at My Voice have reached out to CCMW, they have always received an amazing response with sponsorship or some kind of support. And I really am grateful for the women at CCMW for all the work that they do and all the achievements that they have, under their belt. And inshallah, I hope that they continue to do this amazing work. Before I go, of course, I'd like to just read something from the chapter of the Quran, which is titled Women. And there's only a couple of short ayahs that have always inspired me. And I'd like to read them. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Whoever desires the reward of this world, then let them know that with Allah are the rewards of this world and the hereafter. And Allah is all hearing, all seeing. O believers, stand firm for justice as witnesses for Allah, even if it is against yourselves, your parents, or close relatives, be they rich or poor. Allah is best to ensure their interests. So do not let your desires cause you to deviate from justice. If you distort the testimony or refuse to give it, then know that Allah is certainly all aware of what you do. Thank you so much, and congratulations to everybody else.
Congratulations, Nargis. Thank you. Our next recipient is Anjum Sultana. She's the National Director of Public Policy and Strategic Communications at YWCA Canada, founder of Millennial Women in Policy, and a former recipient of CCMW's Lila Fallman Scholarships. Anjum also serves on several community boards, including the Regent Park Community Health Center, Toronto Environmental Alliance, and Council of Agencies Serving South Asians. Welcome, Anjum.
Jazakallah, everyone, and thank you so much, first of all, to CCMW for this honor. It means so much to receive this honor and to receive this award from this organization, given the incredible work and legacy of fighting for human rights and fighting for social justice, but also, you know, in my own journey, thinking just a few years ago, CCMW saw potential in me and invested in that potential. And I will say, you know, that scholarship was so critical to my trajectory and where I am today. So really it's this incredible moment of coming full circle and just feeling very inspired by my fellow recipients, but also the incredible speeches we've had so far. I think this moment has taught us, and this has been the legacy of CCMW, the importance of the collective and the importance of collective action. And I think the moment that we're in right now, that is so necessary. And I'm so grateful to be part of the CCMW community and to do my part to help facilitate that and push that forward. I want to dedicate this award to my parents, my first teachers, if you will, on the importance of community service. So my mother, Munawar Sultana, and my father, Muhammad Chan Pasha. I remember every single, you know, many of my childhood memories, there's always the influence of community service. That's just the way it was in my household. And so I'm really grateful to be here today and to continue that spirit and continue that in the work that I do moving forward. So thank you again to CCMW and all the incredible folks that made today happen.
Thank you, Anjum. Our next recipient is Anna Said. She's founder of CCMW Northern Ontario Chapter and a 2020 recipient of McMaster's Labor Studies Award in Social Justice. She's the elected Provincial Human Rights Committee delegate for Ontario Public Services Employees Union. Congratulations, Anya.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Miigwech and dhanyabad for this award. I'm at a loss for words. I'm just been muted. Some everybody, Miigwech and dhanyabad for this award today. At this very moment live, I am managing imposter syndrome. I'm so humbled and so happy and elated to share this moment with my fellow winners. And I cannot thank the CCMW family for the mentorship they've provided to me in the last couple of years. And prior to me founding the Northern Ontario chapter, I always admired the leadership and the tenacity of my sisters. And I really feel out of place as well. And thank you to my CCMW family for being a prism of bright light to my work. And you have the breadth and depth of the knowledge of the CCMW family fails to never amaze me and challenge me every day. I would like to thank my grandmother and my mother and my sister and for always being by my side. And I would also like to thank the men in my life, my brother-in-law and my partner, who give me strength. and who've taught me that no matter what a man can do, a woman can do it better. But mostly, I would like to dedicate this award to my mother, Rita Parvin. She deserves the title of Chief Operating Officer of thriving, not just surviving, in the face of adversity. And she's taught me that community service should be the fabric of every family, and every mother and every sister. So again, I'm humbled to be in your presence today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anya. And now we'll turn the program over to Zahra Grant.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Just before we get started, I just want to introduce myself and give some context to my own locations. My name is Zahra Grant, and I've been a national board member of CCMW since 2017. Can everybody see me? I'm still seeing Najat, so I'm not sure. I was born here in Toronto on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and it is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. I'm a first-generation born Muslim. My father's an immigrant from Trinidad and Tobago who reverted to Islam before I was born, but I was raised in a community of predominantly Shia community of Black Caribbean reverts. I'm particularly passionate about issues of justice for women, racialized and marginalized communities, and how we could do this through community building. I'd like to extend my congrats again to all our Women Who Inspire awardees. You deserve to be celebrated, and you are all great examples of the varying ways that Muslim women can be powerful agents of change. Thank you for being here with us today, Fatima, Nadia, Nargis, Anjum, and Anna. It's a true honor and privilege to be able to engage with you in this conversation so that we can build and learn together. We are at an interesting precipice in our history. We're in the midst of a global pandemic, wherein its devastation is also clearly highlighting the impact on the working poor and racialized communities. It has exposed with undeniable certainty the existence of systemic racism in our health systems and public institutions. At the same time, May 25th, 2020, the killing of George Floyd in an excruciating 8 minutes and 45-second display of police brutality. Perhaps it was the age of social media that the entire world got to witness. But because this type of violence and experiences of racism are not new to Black and Brown communities, but we're seeing a global engagement that is quite different. And perhaps it's because the world has been forced to slow down, that we are all less distracted, because it seems the world has been ignited to confront these issues of injustice, where historically, depending on the country and culture, it may manifest itself in different ways, but the reality of colonization and its effects on virtually every continent in the world has become very apparent. White supremacist, capitalist imperialism as a system of domination requires hierarchy and exploitation at its core via structural racism, embedded poverty, and exclusion, and we continue to witness its destructive impacts, violence, and unsustainability. At the same time, what is very encouraging is that communities all over the world, it seems, have been mobilized in confronting anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous racism, and the multitude of ways these issues manifest in our communities. A racial reckoning, if you will. It has always seemed inevitable, but as Minister Monsef eloquently captured in her speech, the passions of our work are often born in pain, frustration, and oppression. So where do we go from here in confronting and reconciling these issues? Because one thing for sure, doing so is our duty. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala advises us in his holy book, and I believe Nargis already spoke to this quote, but it is definitely one of my favorites, that, "O those who believe, be staunch in equity as witnesses to Allah, even against yourselves or the ones who are your parents, your nearest of kin, whether you would be rich or poor, for Allah is closer to both than you are. So follow not your desires, that you become unbalanced. And if you distort or turn them aside, then truly Allah is aware of what you do." And that's a translation from Nahle Bakhtiar. May Allah be pleased with you. We actually lost her in 2020. She was the first American Muslim to translate the Quran. So check out her translation under the Sublime Quran. So just to jump into our panel discussion, I'm going to start with you, if you don't mind, Dr. Jackson Best. As was mentioned in your acceptance award, in 2019, you published a systematic review of literature on Black Muslims in Canada. And your paper spoke to, and you mentioned earlier, about the erasure of Black Muslims in both Muslim and non-Muslim communities. I'd like to expand on that. Your review also found that across the literature reviewed, people's lived experiences were typically described as being mediated by being both Black and Muslim. The work often discussed the distinct ways in which Black Muslims are discriminated against within both white supremacist structures and Islamic cultural religious spaces. What can Canadian Muslims do to address anti-Black racism and anti-Indigenous racism within our own communities?
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for the question. You know, I think often about this question, especially as we had such a strong response this summer to Black Lives Matter, and saw such for me it was unprecedented, the amount of support and reaching out that we witnessed from non-Black Muslim communities, and you know, this willingness to start to engage. And I think that we definitely need to continue that, and we need to also move past engagement. So, you know, I think that one of the ways that we can see non-Black Muslim people, allies in non-Black Muslim communities, is absolutely to really, truly in structural and systemic ways start to address anti-Blackness that exists in our mosques, organizations, boards, agencies, et cetera, et cetera. Anti-Blackness is unfortunately rampant, and it occurs at both structural, individual, systemic, you know, one-to-one levels every single day. And a lot of the times it exists in ways that are so invisibilized that only Black Muslims can actually explain what that is. And a lot of the times we are met with skepticism or, you know, even avoidance. And so, you know, now more than ever, we need to have Muslim organizations earnestly engage with Black Muslims and to root out these invisible and very visible anti-Black Islamophobic structures and ways that and ways of functioning and ways of operating. So that's definitely one way. And I would say that we need to also continue to amplify Black Muslim voices. We absolutely need to have specific incidences where Black Muslim voices are amplified and you know, promoted, both inside of our Black Muslim communities, but also outside of our Black Muslim communities. I've seen, you know, Islamic History Month had an amazing poster that was dedicated specifically to the resilience of Black Muslims. We need more of that all of the time, because truly, you know, as we learn more and more, myself included, we see that Black Muslims have been the first Muslims to be to set foot in North America, right? And a lot of the times our communities have also been here for a very long time. My father and my mother had converted to Islam in the 80s and 70s, but there are Black Muslims who have been here from the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, obviously during slavery, enslavement, et cetera. And there's so many roadmaps that have been left by Black Muslim communities that can be useful to non-Black Muslim communities to engage in the work of undoing Islamophobia, challenging Islamophobia, and straddling that line between, you know, Black issues, social issues, Black Muslim issues. Black Muslims have been doing it forever because we traverse so many different identities. And truly, as I said, I think that we have an amazing roadmap that many other communities would be privileged to learn from. So I think that we need to have more of that, and it needs to be, you know, truly iterative, and it needs to be collaborative, and it needs to be non-tokenized, and all of the other things.
Thank you. Thank you, Fatima, for very succinct examples that inshallah many of our attendees will bear in mind and take to heart in their actionable items next. Nadia, I'd like to turn to you next. You currently hold title as Chief Executive Officer with the National Council of Canadian Muslims, an organization doing exemplary work with Canadian Muslims fighting for justice and religious freedom from their governments and fellow Canadians. A big fight right now is challenging Bill 21 as a bill that legalizes systemic discrimination against minorities What are some of the issues you are facing in this battle and navigating resolutions? And what else can we be doing to support the fight against racial injustice and systemic racism?
Thank you, Zara, and thank you, Fatima, as well, for some amazing remarks. I think the question of fighting for racial justice is a complicated one and a big one, but not something we should shy away from. And for the Muslim community in Canada in particular, I think fighting racism is kind of like fighting a two-headed monster. Because on the one hand, we have to simultaneously fight racism and Islamophobia that's directed at us as a community, while also dealing with what Dr. Fatima Jackson Best has brought up with racism within our communities that's felt and upheld in so many different ways. And these two fights can sometimes pull us in different directions, and it can be exhausting, but it's a struggle that we all have a duty to engage in. And if we're truly interested in dismantling and fighting racial injustice. But in terms of what we're doing to fight racism, I mean, we have so many incredible Muslim organizations. Alhamdulillah, we have so many incredible Muslim leaders and community organizers and activists across the country who are engaging in this incredibly difficult work in many different ways, from like our storytellers and poets to our policy advocates to lawyers. And as a community, we're doing this on many different fronts. And as you mentioned, one of those fronts right now that we at NCCM are engaged in on the front lines is Bill 21. And just for by way of background for the audience who might not know, Bill 21 is a law in Quebec that bans religious symbols from several public sector jobs. So it makes it illegal for people who wear the hijab, turban, or kippah, for example, from working in jobs such as teachers, prosecutors, and judges, and police officers. And this is a law that currently is in effect, has been in effect for over a year now. So if you wear a hijab in Quebec, you cannot become a teacher. If you wear a kippah in Quebec, you cannot become a police officer. And I want to kind of, let that sink in for a second, because I think in the rest of Canada, the reality of what this is on the ground for Quebecers has not quite sunk in. Essentially, this bill has legalized systemic discrimination. We know systemic racism exists in so many ways, and it's something that we have legal mechanisms to fight against, not always successfully, and they're not all completely sufficient. But this bill very explicitly legalizes systemic discrimination in terrifyingly explicit ways, and it does it in the name of secularism. So today, young Muslim girls in Quebec who wear a hijab, they simply cannot dream of following their passion to become a teacher, for example. And this is nothing short of second-class citizenship, where certain groups of Quebecers basically have access to more opportunities than everyone else. And right now, NCCM is engaged in a legal challenge. We are right now in the courts, in front of the Quebec Superior Court, where our case is being heard to have the law completely struck. And we've been fighting this battle since the day this bill became law, and even before that. And we know this is really important, not just for Quebecers, it's important for everyone in Canada, and not just for Muslims either. It's important for all groups, for all minority groups especially, and racialized groups, because it kind of puts forward a model for enacting discriminatory laws in ways that make it difficult for people to challenge them. So I encourage you, everyone everyone that's listening, to please to follow this fight. At the very least, tune in. Make sure that you know what is going on, because this is happening right here in Canada. It's something that's happening right here and something we can do, like we as a community can come together and fight together quite effectively if we do it with one voice. So I wanted to kind of conclude my remarks with just some things that people can do to support this fight. And one of the things that I think is very simple that people can do to kind of support mobilizations against racism and Islamophobia in general, not just when it comes to Bill 21, is I want you to, and invite your own networks as well to do the same, is to just be part of the mobilization, whatever way you can. And it can be as simple as signing petitions when they come up. It can be as simple as joining letter writing campaigns when they come up. These things matter. These things make a difference. They take typically 2 to 5 minutes of your time. Like take a minute and join this mobilization. And email us at NCCM if you want to find out any more information on how you can help. Our email address is info@nccm.ca, and we'd be very happy to kind of show you how to further support our challenge against Bill 21. But also I want you to just remember and pray for those people who are not just impacted by laws like Bill 21, but people who are impacted by Islamophobia and racism as a whole in Canada. And I want to take a minute to remember people who we have lost, such as Brother Muhammad Aslam Zafis, who was killed right at the doorsteps of the IMO mosque in an act of Islamophobia, like the 6 men at the Quebec City Mosque who lost their lives, and their families their lives were completely overhauled. I want to take a second to remember them. And I want to encourage everyone to hold these innocent lives that we've lost to Islamophobic violence in your hearts, and don't look away. These are some things that I think everyone can do, and doesn't take much of an effort to do it. But I think if we all come together, we can have a real force in changing what has become far too normalized as Islamophobic and racist public and systemic discourse. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nadia, for those reminders and really highlighting how, national narratives and policies really have real impacts on individuals and their experiences. It is really important, but also very easy to get engaged in small ways, whatever ways we can. It's really important. So thank you, Nadia. Okay, Nargis, I would like to turn to you next, inshallah, because many Canadian Muslims are either themselves immigrants or refugees, or the descendants who came here from former colonized nations. You yourself have also lived in quite a few countries all over the world. You're of Pakistani descent, but was raised in Saudi Arabia. You have since then lived in Pakistan, the US, Dubai, and of course now here in Canada. What do you think is the role of internalized racism, and how can Muslims contend with their own experiences of racial discrimination and their own racial prejudices? I'm curious as to what your experiences and reflections are on these issues, having lived in these differing socio-cultural contexts and communities.
Thank you, Zahra, for that question and for the opportunity. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So having lived in all these different places, obviously when I was growing up in Saudi Arabia, I did not experience, I know a lot of people say they experienced some kind of discrimination. Personally, I did not. And I think I also, because look at things from a lens of forgiving people for ignorance maybe, and you pointed out the other day that just because they're ignorant does not mean that's not racist. So keeping that in mind, yes, there are people who will ask you questions, especially I think the first time when I came to study in the United States is when I started hearing things like, oh, you don't have an accent, or things like, how do you like being in the United States, because you probably came from places where there's no pizza, or there's, you were on camels. And this was right after the Gulf War too. So I was kind of a little shocked that people were so ignorant, but I felt that that was an opportunity for me to be able to represent myself as a Muslim woman as much as I possibly can, to go into events, to do talks, whatever I could, rather than taking it inward. I wanted to be out there, but not just the people who are the other, but I feel that when I became aware of this, I realized there are people in our own families or our own communities that are not accepting of the way we are. For example, just a few years ago was the first time my husband decided, let's go and live in Pakistan. He got a good job, so we went there. It was my first time there. I thought, oh, great, Muslim country, you know, finally my parents' country. But what I realized is because we were in Islamabad, where I think it's a little bit of a group of privileged people who have some money and, you know, whatever, just wearing the hijab, I felt was a negative thing. I'm in a Muslim country and people are looking down at me and thinking because I wear the hijab, I may be somewhere down below, low line, you know, and it was quite shocking for me. And then of course there's always that skin color thing, because now that with My Voice Canada, one of the things that these youth do is they give us anonymous questions of what is bothering them. And a lot of the times these questions are, how do I make my family not be racist? They are Muslims, they practice, and they are not accepting of somebody who has an accent or who is from a certain town in their country or of a special, you know, skin color or whatever, right? Like, or a race that they have always grown up to believe is beneath them. And these are questions that we really need to come back to the root cause. What is the root cause? We call ourselves Muslim. Have we ever pondered what does that mean? What does Muslim mean? Well, Muslim is, the word itself means submission to God. But how do you submit to a God if you don't know what he has written? And just as an example, I'm just going to use the Quran again, because that's where I go back to learn. In Surah Hujurat, there's this ayah, O believers, do not let some men ridicule others. They may be better than them. Nor let some women ridicule other women. They may be better than them. Do not defame one another, nor call each other by offensive nicknames. How evil it is to act rebelliously after having faith. And whoever does not repent, it is they who are the true wrongdoers. So yes, we may do a lot of things based on habit, but I think the last bit of that ayah said, if you do not repent, meaning that the door of repentance. If all of a sudden you realize that this is how you've been raised and you didn't think about it when you made these comments, maybe it's time to really repent and be conscious all the time that who actually is judging us. The one who created all of us in all these different colors and all these different shapes and sizes and races and languages, right? So it's so important to clean out your own heart and then start working on your family if you possibly can, or be the role model.
Yes, thank you so much, Nargis. I think that is a really good and salient point about doing the self-work and also not being afraid to confront those issues within your families. No, for sure, inshallah. Okay, so Anjum, if you don't mind, I would like to turn to you next. A huge part of the work of CCMW and the goal of this event, of course, is in support of the Dr. Laila Falman Scholarship, is the work of supporting young Canadian Muslim women gain access and opportunity to pursue their goals. And this is, as you said, a bit of a full circle moment for you, as you were the 2014 recipient of the same scholarship, and now we're seeing the returns of the investment with the brilliant work that you have poured into community with your leadership. You are currently the National Director of Public Policy and Strategic Communications at the YWCA Canada, the nation's largest and oldest gender equity organization. Since its inception, CCMW has been fighting for social justice and gender and racial equality. What are some of the lessons you could share with us, and what else could we be doing as individuals and grassroots organizers to strive for racial justice?
Yeah, this is, CCMW will always forever have a very, very special space in my heart for all the incredible work that you've done on the systemic level, but also all of the incredible work that you do in communities and supporting individuals. And I've seen that firsthand. And I think in many ways, that is the formula for success. We have to be engaging at multiple levels as Canadian Muslim women, as folks of this land that we call Canada. Because if we want to see a better world, Minister Monsef said it best. There is always the potential for backlash in the pursuit of progress, in the pursuit of justice. And so we must be vigilant. I think sometimes as folks who live on this land, we look to our neighbors to the south and we see, we're not like them. And I think, many of us perhaps were really looking at what was happening in the American election, for example. And I think I saw a couple things. I saw, the importance of civic engagement, i.e., going to the ballot box if you have the opportunity to do so and making your vote count. But it's also the important work of organizing in communities in between elections. And I think part of what, I'd love to see more of, and CCMW does this well, and I think many other organizations are doing this work, is to how do we scale that civic engagement at that, systemic level. I think part of it is educating ourselves around how does power work in this country. We have different orders of government. There's different priorities for the Muslim community, and we need to see that change happen at a systemic level. I think sometimes, there's incredible work that happens across the country, but if we want more people to benefit from that work, oftentimes legislation or oftentimes the work of government or engaging with government and other organizations and institutions is critical. I think something else as well is when it comes to racial justice, many speakers have spoken about this, but we have to also collect our own communities. We have to do that internal work as individuals, but also, when we look at Muslim institutions in this country, is it fully reflective of the racial diversity of the Muslim Ummah in Canada? And I know many of us would say no. And I think part of that is we have to start to give up power. As a Desi Muslim, right, I see myself represented in many different Muslim spaces, but I know that's not the same case for other fellow Canadian Muslim women. And we have to start to figure out what is happening there, and not just naming it and acknowledging it is one part of the solution, but it's also doing the work to change that at a systemic level. And I think each of us are connected to different institutions, different organizations. So starting to look at what role do we have to play to start to do that racial justice work in our organization. I think the last kind of piece I want to kind of share is around the importance of representation. Having representation in different decision-making spaces is important. And, my background in health equity, I've actually done research that shows the benefits for our societal health when we see ourselves reflected in institutions. But we also, there's a saying out there where if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, right? If you're not at the table, you're on the menu in terms of you may see yourselves not facing the positive benefits of public policy. But what is also important is not only fighting for that seat at the table, but also fighting to set the table, setting the agenda for what is important. So not just getting ourselves, focused on the agenda that's already laid out, but also, folks who are from diverse equity-seeking communities, setting the agenda for what should society focus on and prioritize. And I think this COVID moment has really provided us the opportunity, the policy window to ensure our priorities are focused on. And I think part of it is organizing ourselves to leverage that and working in collaboration with other groups who may be facing the same sources of inequity and oppression. So I think those are some of the steps that we can take moving forward.
Thank you so much, Anjum, for bringing that so clearly into focus, because really it is about the distribution of power. And when we see that shift in power, we'll see the shift in the distribution of priorities and seeing, those who are on the margins, as Bell Hooks says eloquently, we move from the margins to the center. So I really appreciate that, Anjum. Okay, and last but certainly not least, Anna, I would like to turn to you as someone with extensive experience working with governmental organizations and in the public service. Being both a woman of color and Muslim, I'm sure has had many challenges. How, in your opinion, does gendered Islamophobia and intersectional issues affect racialized women and girls, and what can we do to address these challenges?
Thank you, Zara. I just wanted to mention that since I'm last, and I understand not the least important, of course, you all have covered, all my fellow winners have covered some of the overlapping concepts that I hope I can shed some light on today. But just to inform my answer, I want to briefly describe my background and where I'm sitting at the table to highlight what I will be discussing today, which is the importance of intersectionality and what the definition of intersectionality, as well as the bystander effect. So I was born in Montreal, spent my formative years as a child there. We moved to Northern Ontario. I also lived in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia for some of my teenage years, and I attended 3 different high schools in 3 different nations and provinces. And that itself came with some challenges. When my family moved to Northern Ontario, I was a teenager, and I was the only minority and racialized person in my school of 1,100 people, but I didn't know it. And the reason I didn't know it or feel it at the time, there was covert and overt discrimination. It's because my family was prominent in the community. So they moved there to serve the community, my parents. So because of the intersectionality of class, I did not feel the oppression. As an adult, I moved back to Northern Ontario through my government job on a secondment by my own choice. Then I was my own person. And I did not have that history follow me after being in Toronto for a decade. That's when I faced it. And I knew that as a Muslim woman, as a Bengali woman, I needed to do something. And I didn't know what that something was. So now I will actually, I'll try to integrate my personal experiences with what intersectionality is. And I know this is not an academic exercise, but it's important for us to define first what that is. It is a legal term. It was coined 30 years ago by Kimberly Crenshaw. And it comprises of all the natural characteristics and attributes of a human being and political identities, which have overlapping distinctions and also tremendous effect on the power that you have in society and any space that you hold. So prior to it being coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, in a legal sphere, it was already a term in its early inception by Karl Marx, and the idea of primitive accumulation and what that means for us, which is divorcing the producer from the supplier. And that actually preexists to Adam and Eve. And his mentioning is of how the original sin, and what the original sin is what divides us. So I mentioned this, I think it's important to understand the history and the context and why it was coined. And gender and race being the most common intersecting, very complex discourses and conversations, but also the fact that the reason it was coined is to stop us from being demoralized, dehumanized, as well as completely demolish racial hierarchies and hierarchies in society with class, with gender, with even the location that you live in. So the Quran, and I will bring in the divine ordinance, quote is, "O mankind, indeed, we have created you from male and female, and have made you into nations, tribes, that you may know one another." So I was taught at home, our privilege and our power is for betterment, not to oppress others. And we cannot claim to be superior to one another. The Ontario Human Rights Code, competing rights, is actually aligned with this. So I will mention now the Islamophobia in the workplace. I have worked with Canadian Labour Congress, and I understand that's a gold sponsor today, so thank you for that. And Islamophobia at Work is a toolkit, and it's authored by the Canadian Labour Congress and unions like OPSU, my union. And it was a call to the mosque attacks in Quebec City, where 6 men have died, and the other atrocities that Muslims have faced. And I'll be circulating that afterwards through CCMW. But the steady rate of hate crimes in Canada has gone up by 125% and 27% in government workspaces. So that includes the federal, provincial, and municipal levels. And the report aims to reinforce us the responsibility of employers, okay, to educate management about legal obligations, amend human rights and religious accommodation, but also that worker-led movements are very important. So that also includes volunteers. and how our voices need to be at the table to set the menu. Thank you, Anjum, for that. But also to clean up the table, because that's where a lot of conversations happen and occur. We need to mobilize and organize, even if we're not part of unions, because unions encourage democratic acculturation. We need strategies, and those strategies stay with us. One of the reminders that I have in my life is not to combat hate with hate and be an educated activist. And sometimes little knowledge can be very dangerous. It can actually be a weapon. So to take the time, if we are passionate about something, or if we witness, whether it's overt or covert racism or any act of oppression on the street, it could be something related to the class, could be related to something to gender orientation, to actually speak up. And Islam teaches us to at least hate it in our heart. The bystander effect is real, and this is why we need to start speaking up. We need to do something at that moment. Just in time is important as at the conversation. We need to model for our own families, because hate often starts on any intersectionality at home. And we need to teach our children that if we hate, it actually does not help us. If we oppress others in the community we live in, crime rates go up. And we need to build resilient communities, and that starts in the home. And it starts with one Muslim woman empowering another Muslim woman,
Inshallah.
and speaking up against the oppression. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. That was really, really great. I think we could probably go on and on with this conversation, but inshallah, the conversation we have built on today can be that spark and launch pad for continued reflection and, more importantly, action from all our attendees today. But I do think, and I hope that we do have a little bit of time for any Q&As. So inshallah, Nazat, if you could let me know if there's any questions for our panelists. I think we have time to take a couple.
I don't think we have any in the Q&A box. There were lots and lots of comments, and I really appreciate that. I saw that the audience was really engaged, and they had comments and words of congratulations and encouragement, and also inspiration based on what each of you have said in your panel remarks. I think this is just scratching the surface. We're going to have hold a whole new session, a completely different session on this topic that can really allow us to go in some depth about the topics for which we scratch the surface. So I'm grateful to each and every one of you for participating. I know that we just started discussing this, and Zahra, thank you very much for moderating this very important topic. And I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to manage the time again. I'm very sorry for being so brutal with it, but I know that you all have busy lives. It is a Sunday, and I totally understand if you have to leave within the next 15 minutes. But please indulge us for a few more minutes. First of all, thank you again, Zahra, and our honorees, each one of them, for their words of wisdom and their knowledge and their experience, and also their advice on how we can address this issue of our own racism, and how we can be more inclusive, not just to say we're inclusive, but actually be meaningful and deliberate in those interactions and our collaborations. So thank you very, very much. It was just the beginning of the discussion. So I am now going to call on our dear friend Nafisa. She's our board member who leads our scholarship committee, to share some information about our scholarship winners for this year. Nafisa?
Thank you very much, Nushat. Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon you. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about Dr. Lila Fallman. CCMW was founded by Dr. Lila Fallman 38 years ago. In 1982, with her just do it attitude, she traveled across Canada to bring Muslim women together to establish the Canadian Council of Muslim Women. She was also a recipient of the Order of Canada. Scholarships are awarded in her name to Canadian Muslim women who make a positive contribution to society through civic engagement and volunteering. This year, we have the opportunity to award 2 scholarships, each in the amount of $1,000. These are made possible by generous donations of CCMW supporters. I would like to encourage donations from friends of CCMW to continue this scholarship program. This year, we had over 50 applicants, and they were all very highly qualified. Our scholarship committee had a very hard time choosing our recipients. It gives me great pleasure to announce our 2 scholarship recipients for this year. I will be announcing the names of these recipients. Our first winner is Ikran Abdullahi Ali. She is a 3rd-year PhD student in the Institute of Medical Sciences at the University of Toronto. She conducts research in Dr. Aaron Knopf's musculoskeletal lab at St. Michael's Hospital. She is a program facilitator for Visions of Science, a nonprofit charitable organization that aims to bring STEM learning to youth in underserved communities. She advocates for STEM education and providing equitable opportunities for marginalized youth. She hopes to serve her community as a leader and mentor. Our second winner is Naila Siddiqui, recently returned home to Ottawa from her study abroad in the Netherlands, where she obtained a minor in cross-cultural business practices. Now she works at Global Affairs Canada while completing her BCom, specializing in international management at the University of Ottawa. She is an active leader in the community and is passionate about youth empowerment, global affairs, gender equality, and human rights. Naila established an organization called Empower 'em, which works on empowering women through safe spaces, leadership development, and dialogue. Naila draws from her own lived experience and knowledge in recognizing the barriers faced by marginalized communities and is determined to build solutions that create a Canada that is safe and inclusive for all and that which promotes equal opportunities. Congratulations again to both our scholarship recipients, and we wish them continued success in their future education. Thanks.
Thank you, Nafisa. Oh, thank you so much, Nafisa. You know what? It is so incredible that we keep on hearing about all of these amazing women, all the ones that have joined us today. I know that Ikran is on this call. Naila couldn't be with us. But what is so impressive is how diverse the backgrounds of all of our recipients are and in their knowledge seeking and their work. And the future can only be bright for Canadian Muslim women and girls. So thank you all for all of your inspiration. I'm going to now call on Firdaus Ali. Firdaus is a person to be reckoned with. She's the one who's been so determined to raise funds for our scholarships. So she's had great success in doing that, and her work is not stopping. So she's going to tell you about how you can help us raise more money for our scholarships. I don't know if Iman's also going to be speaking, but over to you, Firdaus. Thank you.
And a big hello to all the attendees. I know I've been harassing money in the last couple of weeks, but I think that it has paid almost 20,000 towards our scholarship. And so a big thank you to all of you for attending and supporting our event and our scholarship fund. I just think it's truly an inspirational moment in history for CCMW and all connected with the organization today. We have founders and pioneers like others who have joined in, and then newbies like me who have been with the organization for just over a year. So to continue this fundraising effort, for all the wonderful work and for the good power that is being displayed by and for women by CCMW, we are launching our GoFundMe workshops. So as the name suggests, it's a series of workshops that would be launched starting today. And, it's a great opportunity for, some fantastic quality me time for all our women, all our tireless ceiling breakers, as Minister Monsif called us, and also not so well behaved women who are making history along the way. So it's really something that we can add to our skill sets and come together as a community of empowered women, empowering others. And these workshops really range from terrarium making to painting, to doodle art, which is also called affirmation art, social media, creative writing, etc. The workshops will be nominally priced at $20 to $30 per workshop, per participant. And very importantly, that every dollar raised from the workshop series will go towards funding the Dr. Laila Falman Scholarship Fund. So do watch the CCMW website and our social media accounts in the coming weeks. We would have a 2021 schedule listed there for you, and i.e. Great way to build our skills, but also to gift somebody. So, Christmas is coming and New Year, and, anybody wanting to gift something that is really meaningful, I would say to buy a ticket to the workshop and gift it to a family member or a friend. So again, I thank you all for attending and supporting CCMW's great work. And I also would like to hand it over to board member Iman, who came up with this fantastic idea, and she would give you a sneak peek into our very first workshop that is being launched as part of the GoFundMe series. So thank you from me, and over to you, Iman.
Thank you. So next slide, please. CCMW is so happy to introduce the first GoFundMe fundraiser. Will take place on Sunday, December 13th. This interactive virtual workshop will feature one of the finalists of CBC's Great Canadian Baking Show, Colin Asuncion. So if you like to bake, or if you know somebody who does, this is a great masterclass fundraiser to take part in. We'll probably be sending you emails about this event soon, so please buy a ticket for yourself, buy one for your sister, buy one for your brother, your best friend, anybody, your neighbor. Join us as Colin bakes some holiday treats as he answers your baking questions live online. Our event email address is actually on the screen right now, so if you have any questions or if you'd like to reserve your spot in the virtual classroom, feel free to email us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Firdaus and Iman. I know that people are probably getting restless now for lunch. So before we let you all go, we are going to now ask our newest board member, Asya Barakzai, to give us our closing remarks and word of thanks. Before I leave you all, thank you for being here. Thank you to all our donors and our sponsors and each and everyone who joined us this morning and then this afternoon. I am truly grateful to amazing women around this country that work with us, that support us, that volunteer with us. And none of this would be possible without all of you. So a word of thanks from me, but I'm going to now introduce you to Asya. Like I said, she's our newest board member. She lives in London, Ontario. Asya, over to you. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Once again, I am absolutely blown away. It was a very inspirational session, and I am so honored to be in the presence of such incredible and, once again, inspirational leaders. And in a time where Muslim women and communities are often targeted for their mere existence, it is a powerful and a very good act of resistance to celebrate those achievements and to celebrate the resilience of Muslim women. It's a very gloomy day in London, Ontario, but my heart is filled with so much love after the ceremony. So before I start a short prayer, I would just like to take a moment to thank our special guests today for joining us. Her Honor, the Honourable Salma Lakhani, the Honourable Minister Mariam Monsef, and the absolutely wonderful Timaj Jarad. Thank you for your support, your incredible work, and for always fighting for our communities in all that you do. You are all an inspiration to women across this country, and your powerful words will always remain with us. And a big thank you, of course, goes out to the staff of CCMW. They are a small but mighty team. But a big thank you also goes out to the CCMW board, chapter members, and all of our volunteers. I'd just like to take a moment to thank a few folks by name. Of course, those who have led the session. So a big thank you to our Executive Director, Nushat Jaffrey, Sabreen Azrak, Firdaus Ali, Zainab Jamal, our President, of course, Nina Karachi Khalid, Shaheen Ashraf, Fozia Talib, Naseem Karani, Najat Hassan, Nafisa Sheikh, Iman Abul Saad, and of course, Zara Grant for her very powerful words today. Thank you for your endless dedication to this organization and for working towards a better community for all Canadian Muslim women. And of course, thank you to our community members, as well as our Women Who Inspire 2020 donors and sponsors for making this event a success. With your support, we were able to raise $20,000 for the Dr. Lila Fallman Scholarship Fund to support Muslim women and girls across this land. And finally, once again, thank you and congratulations to our honorees for being present with us and our scholarship winners. We are so proud to have such wonderful women in our community. May we always celebrate you in your entirety, and may we always support you in all that you do. So before we adjourn, I would just like to do a short prayer. Do we have time?
Yes, we do.
Okay, absolutely. So, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I seek refuge in Allah from the shaitan in the name of Allah, the most gracious and the most merciful. Oh Allah, please bless this cause and bless the many folks who have supported and have volunteered their time and energy for today's ceremony and scholarship fund. Oh Allah, let us not forget the sufferings of our fellow human beings, Muslim and non-Muslim around the world and in our own neighborhoods. Let us always find ways to assist, be it in prayers, money, or action. Oh Allah, allow us to be better allies to our siblings in humanity. Allow us to be better allies to our siblings in humanity. Allah, give us the courage and compassion to work towards abolishing oppressive systems so that we may end anti-Black racism, white supremacy, Islamophobia, the patriarchy, and of course the many other forms of bigotry and ignorance everywhere we may find it. May we always work towards our collective liberation, healing, and true decolonization, indigenization, and reconciliation. O Allah, spread your divine mercy on and bless the souls of communities who are faced with injustice, violence, and discrimination on a daily basis. And Allah, please fill our hearts with love for one another in sisterhood. Allow us to always empower, celebrate, and support one another in allyship, compassion, and empathy. Allah, fill our hearts with love for you and allow us to open our eyes and ears to your mercy. Allow us to cleanse our hearts of bad intentions and to do everything in our lives with the intention to worship you. O Allah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Ameen.
Thank you, Asya. You did do us proud. Beautifully expressed gratitude and a lovely prayer. And at this time, I'd like to say goodbye. Thank you again for joining us. I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed with emotion right now because we did come together at a very difficult time in the world. But may God give us all health as we continue to confront the current pandemic and the racial reckoning that we're all going through. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and we shall see you again soon, inshallah.